in honor of Miss Tina Turner, Rest in Melody. One of my faves. I'm trying to tell you something about my life. Maybe give me some insight between black and white. The best thing you ever done for me is to help me take my life less seriously. It's only life after all. Well, darkness has a hunger that's insatiable, and lightness has a call that's hard to hear. I wrap my fear around me like a blanket. I sail my ship of safety till I sank it, crawling on your shore. I went to the doctor, I went to the mountain, I looked to the children, I drank from the fountain. There's more than one answer to these questions, pointing me in a crooked line. The less I seek my source for some definitive, closer I am to find, yeah. Closer I am to find, yeah. I went to see the doctor of philosophy with a poster of Rasputin and a beard down to his knee. He never did marry or see a B-grade movie. Rated my performance. He said he could see through me. I spent 4 years prostrate to the higher mind. Got my paper and I was free. I went to the doctor, I went to the mountain, I looked to the children, I drank from the fountain. There's more than one answer to these questions, pointing me in a crooked line. The less I seek my source for some definitive, closer I am to find, yeah. Closer I am to find, yeah. I stopped by a bar at 3 a.m. to seek solace from a bottle or possibly a friend. I woke up with my headache like my head against the wall, twice as cloudy as I was the night before. I went in seeking clarity. I went to the doctor, I went to the mountain, I looked to the children, I drank from the fountain. We go to the doctor, we go to the mountain, we look to the children, we drank from the fountain. Yeah, we go to the Bible, we go for the workout, we read up on revival, we stand up for the lookout. There's more than one answer to these questions, pointing me in a crooked line. The less I seek my source for some definitive, closer I am to find. Closer I am to find, yeah. Closer I am to find, yeah. Thank you. And take it away.
Everybody, stay blessed. I have a question. Who knew that song the minute the first chord was played? I did, and I was so excited. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
My name is Leanne Younger. I'm the pastor of City View Church, and it is our great pleasure to partner with Storyburgh to host the Demilitarized Zone. This is our third, the second time we've hosted it here, but it's the third program, and there will be more, and all of you are invited to tell a story, okay? My job here is to be the MC, to read some ground rules, to invite speakers up. And so as we get started, first of all, let me say some of you got a half sheet when you came in that asked some questions. That's for an activity later. If it's something that you want to read yourself, you can hold on to it. If it's not, when Pam, raise your hand, comes around, we will have her take that from you and she'll read it for you. You all can hear me in the back, right? Because yes. If I want to be a real rock star, I have to do it like this. But I'm gonna try to go like this today. So, right now we want to just invite you. First, I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath. Let's do it one more time. And I'm inviting you to do that so that you can bring yourself fully into this space to hear, to listen intently to the folks who are going to tell us their stories, but also so that you can prepare yourself for the fact that you may hear something you weren't planning to hear, or you may hear something that you're not sure you agree with. And that's where the rules of engagement for the Demilitarized Zone come in. And I want to just take a few minutes and read those to you. Number one, please check your weapons at the door, all right? And that's metaphorical, figurative, virtual, actual especially. But that includes no groans, okay? No cheering. No eye rolling or insults. So this looks like a really insult-free crowd, so I'm not worried about that. And we ask you to participate here tonight as an individual who's prepared to respectfully listen to a story from another person. And part of listening well is understanding that the folks who come up here are speaking for themselves, not for anyone else. And I think this is critically important, that respectful attention does not imply agreement. We are here to experience each other, to experience what our storytellers have to share with us. And what you do with what you hear here tonight, that's entirely up to you. So as we move forward, I invite you to keep those ground rules in mind. And it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, and all the speakers were asked to share something about a journey that they've had, whether it's a physical journey or an emotional journey. And I'm going to stop, actually, because I'm thinking I was going to tell everybody to turn their cell phones off. So if you got a cell phone, make sure it's turned down or something. Part of respectful listening is turning off those eternal, never-ending connectors that we have in our pockets, right? And so Marcus Daniel is our first speaker. I don't know if you knew that, but he gave me a look. I'm like, oh, he's surprised by this. Although maybe I'm wrong. I think that's right. Let me make sure. I don't want to surprise anyone. Yes, Marcus, you're first. And Marcus shared with us that as a child, he was born and lived in Germany. So he's actually made a very long physical and emotional journey. And something he wants you to know about himself is that he is passionate about the arts. And so would you join me about the arts? And would you join me in welcoming Marcus?
Evening. Oh, hello. Is this on?
Yeah. You just got to get real close to it, or you just have to speak up. Either one.
Hello. Oh, right. Hear myself. Okay. Hello. My name is Marcus Daniel. I'm here to tell a story. It's kind of funny. I'm usually able to speak about my experience easily, but putting words to paper was really challenging. This is my second time participating in the Storyburgh. I appreciate this opportunity. When I was here the first time, I tried telling my story about my Crohn's disease and how it was affecting me, causing depression, suicidal thoughts, and other terrible emotions. How to pick up my dance career, this disease crept up on me and ruined my life. I had to uproot my life to DC and move in with some of my family members here in Pittsburgh. But that's the story I'm here to retell. I'm here about my journey I took since then. Semi-road trip, trip to clarify. A trip I really didn't want to take. A trip I wasn't the way I wanted to go about happening unexpectedly. I drove from Pittsburgh to Florida. I started this journey in March for my mother's birthday, where she lives in North Carolina. This trip was for me to celebrate my mother's birthday. My plan wasn't to drive, but it was to take the train, but I took too long, so I had to end up driving myself. Whew. The past couple of years, I have been getting anxiety traveling on my own. Ideas start to form, all these what ifs. I never was the type to question problems and things like that in my 20s. I was kind of fearless. I would jump on the bus, jump in my car, travel to New York, Philadelphia, wherever. No questions asked, I just did it. When I lived here, before I got really sick, after work, I would go out in the middle of the night, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, to go jog, go to the gym, work out, clear my head. So, I first drove to Maryland, which I've done many times, to visit my father and his wife and their 2 beautiful dogs. I was wondering why and questioned myself, what's wrong with you, Marcus? It's 4 a.m. and you're just going through the tolls to the head to Harrisburg, and I can't call anybody because everyone's asleep. So I turned on the music that lasted for a little while. Keep your mind off of wandering, wondering. Fast forward, I see the sun come up, and I see Breezewood, my numerous pit stops to rest and grab a couple of snacks. After I pulled off, a friend of mine called. God knew I needed someone to take my mind off the road. The last time I saw him, my friend, I call him my brother, was before the pandemic. But while he was talking, I started, excuse me, I started thinking, is this person supposed to be in my life? Is certain people supposed to be in your life to remind you of the person you were, or the good times and bad times? Old friends remind you of that person that you used to be. But can you share the things of what you've been through and how you are now? Watching them through the computer, social media, and the way they're all moving on while you're still stuck in the past. My good friend, I wish he would come visit sometimes. After I pulled off from my father's house, I head towards North Carolina. It's about a 4 hour, sometimes 6 hour drive. I said goodbye to my dad and his wife. While I was traveling on these crunchy roads, on the other side, it was like a candy bar. Wind was blowing so fast, making the car go back and forth and everything. I get to my mother's house, stay there, celebrate her birthday, and then the next day I head down to Florida. Now, once I hit Florida, I was feeling kind of relieved. My sister lives in Florida, also my best friend. She's been living in Jackson, Florida for several years. While I was there, I was there about 2 weeks. I hung out, explored, walked on the beach, met with the locals. Florida just didn't feel like it was home for me. When I left Florida, again dreading to drive back up north, coming back to Vicksburg, I did come pit stops to my cousin's house, Micki, and her husband, Fred. They also live in North Carolina. They're also about 2 hours away from my mother. But as I was driving again alone with my thoughts, I remember my childhood as a military kid and how it shaped me as a man. all the good and bad habits I collected in my 39 years, all the things I experienced and still want to do. I stayed at her house about 2 weeks also with my cousin. We hung out, had some very deep conversations. We cried, we laughed. She gave me some nuggets to think about on the way back. I talked to her. She knows just about everything about me. In particular, she surprised me and made me cry. I'm grateful for her and her always being there when she can. So, leaving her house, I'm heading back up to my mother's house for another pit stop. Stayed there. My mother had a big surprise for me. She found one of my old performances before I fell ill. Bringing that up, again, all the emotions of happiness, anger, and questions of why this had to happen to me. I was living my dream. I was living my dream and putting in the work for what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Why I get sick. But then after this trip and making it back to Pittsburgh, I do know why. I know why I'm not motivated, why I'm depressed, and why I have all those why questions. It's because I don't think Pittsburgh is as my home. As a military kid, stability wasn't granted all the time. We always moved. When my dad retired, we were in a place where I still didn't feel like it was home. Even when I graduated, I left and came to Pittsburgh with my aunt because it was familiar, but still didn't feel like home. When I left in 2005, I left Pittsburgh in 2005 and pursued a dance career, and it was mixing in the business of the business of the arts. It felt like home. But even though I've been here in the Still City with all the potholes, incredibly huge hills, seems like mountains, since 2009, the friends, mentors, and family makes it pretty great. But I'm going to leave you with this. It's a show I watched called Not Dead Yet. It's on ABC. It's about a woman who actually writes obituaries, but she goes through life lessons through doing this. There was a quote from this one episode on season 1, episode 13, if you want to check it out. The quote is, "Life can be surprising. We can close our eyes and visualize our lives on one way, only to find ourselves in a different place than what we imagine. And sometimes we find things appearing in our lives that we didn't know we needed, but suddenly we can't live without. I guess it's all part of our journey. And if we give ourselves over to it, the exciting part is we never know where it's going to take us next." Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. I should let you all know that the broad theme for today, for most of all of our previous shows, is where I'm coming from. And that could be physical, that could be a perspective, that could be experiential. Slowly but surely, we will evolve into a group where we can talk about perhaps some issues that we don't all agree on. And so, but today, we want you to listen intently to find out where our speakers are coming from, where you identify with them even. And as we move forward, I am pleased to introduce my dear friend, Marcella Holmes. And Marcella wants us to know about a long journey she took to Washington, D.C., where she attended a wedding. And the experience of that let her know that she should not go too far away from home without having a friend as a traveling partner. So let's welcome Marcella.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, my name is Marcella. I reside at the Allegheny East Commons. Before I say that, this story I'm going to tell you right now, it's heartfelt for me because I actually lived it. Just want to tell you a little bit about myself. When I was young, I grew up on the north side attending a small Baptist church on Wilson Avenue, accepting Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior at an early age. One summer day, while going to work, it was about 5:30 in the morning. I was walking along on Smallman Street. I noticed people in the bar who were very loud. I proceeded along the street, approaching the bus stop. I pulled out my Bible. I pulled up my Bible to begin to read. I suddenly heard a loud crash. It was the bar window breaking. The men were inside fighting. They fell through the bar window. They continued fighting in front of the bar. Suddenly, one of the men jumped up, ran back inside, and came back out with a gun. He pointed the gun at the man. I was watching everything that was going on at this point. 5 shots was fired, hitting the man in the chest. He slowly turned around, trying to walk away while holding his chest. His shirt was filled with blood. I could tell how much pain he was in. I ran to hide, but then I heard a soft voice. I heard a soft voice say, "Do you believe in what you're reading?" And I responded, "Yes, Lord." Then it came to me, "No weapons formed against me shall prosper." I turned back around, walking up to the wounded man. He was crying out, "Help me, help me." I suddenly became distracted by shutting windows. The people who was once there looking out was gone. I pulled out my phone and called the police. Sorry, Steve. Telling the wounded guy I would not leave him. I was just calling for help. I looked up. The man with the gun was still standing there. This time he was pointing the gun at me, but it wouldn't fire. He quickly turned around and ran back with the other people in the bar. They all jumped in their cars and sped off. Later, the suspects were caught after I gave a description to the police. The man was taken to the hospital. Days later, I got a call from the police saying if it wasn't for your faith and your bravery, the man would not have lived. He also said the young man said thank me for helping him. In conclusion, I was feeling afraid when it first happened. Then I felt brave, encouraged, and strengthened. If it wasn't for the Lord, I don't know what I would have done. But now today, my faith is stronger than ever, and I endure it till the end.
Thank you, Marcella, for your bravery and transparency. Thank you. Our next speaker is Micki McDonough, and this tells me that her journey, she describes her journey as 74 years of eye, heart, and mind-opening experiences. You have to be lying, 74, right? Okay, she's not lying. Let's hear what she has to say. Welcome, Micki.
Thank you. Thanks so much, everybody. So, this is a story about secrets. It starts a long time ago. I was so excited when my little sister Nancy was born in March of 1959. I was 11 at the time. I had 2 younger brothers, Ed and Bill, and I thought you were both annoying. I'm sorry if you're watching. And my mother said, we now have the perfect family. I have 2 boys and 2 girls, and they're each 3 to 4 years apart. So I was thinking, well, I didn't know what Catholic roulette was at the time, but I've since found out, that we call that rhythm now. And it seemed to work very well for them up to a point. So I was surprised when about 14 months later, I saw my mother in a maternity outfit. I was surprised, I was excited, I was kind of shocked. But anyway, it turned out being good because I was told that I would finally have the honor of naming this new sibling. So by that time, my last name's McDonough. I was very into being Irish, so I picked Maureen as the girl name. I honestly don't remember what I picked as a boy name, but it was probably something like Liam or, you know, something like that. I also remember that the projected birth date of my new sibling was going to be like late September or early October. And I was really happy about that because I'm a Libran. And I'm like, oh, this new sibling is going to be a Libra also. All right, so fast forward, I guess it would be, I don't know, maybe 5 months later. It was October 4th, 1960. Mom and Dad are going off to the hospital, something about water breaking. By that point, I had just turned 12. So, you know, my parents felt that I could supervise the younger siblings, and my grandparents lived very close by. So in case of an emergency, I was able to call them. So later that night on October 4th, my dad called, and he seemed very sad and was very serious and said, there's something wrong with Maureen. First I'm like, girl. But this has to be between you and me. Neither of us can tell anyone that something is wrong with your sister until we take her to the family doctor and he confirms whatever her condition is. All right. So 9 days later, it was October 13th, 1960. I was in grade school, but I also knew that it was the 9th game of the World Series, Pirates against Yankees. Keep that in mind, October 13th, 1960. I have to admit that I come from a long line of baseball fanatics. My grandfather coached a sandlot team in the 30s and 40s, and you know, told me that he actually, like his team actually played the Homestead Grays, and my mom was thrilled that she had actually met Josh Gibson. So that's a little aside there, but okay. So I was in grade school, and for some reason that particular year I had to walk home from school. We got a ride to school, but for some reason I had to walk home. And it was literally almost all uphill, a mile. And so school is dismissed. You know, all my schoolmates are running into their parents' cars. I hear the car radio on, and it was like, you know, in retrospect now, I'm thinking it was probably the 8th inning of that 9th game of the 7th game, I'm sorry, of the World Series. And it seemed like the Pirates were losing, but that there was a hitting streak at that time, and they might pull ahead. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm missing all of this. I'm missing this. So I'm trudging along, and I get to the big steep hill. It was maybe 10 minutes later, and I'm just not looking forward to it at all. But all of a sudden, I hear horns beeping, pots banging, people yelling, and I'm like, oh, great, I missed this. I gotta get home. So I'm like rushing up the hill, sweating. But I looked over and I saw my family's car drive by. And I'm like, wait, this was the day that my parents were taking my baby sister Maureen to the family doctors to find out, you know, what her condition was. So I had way more motivation then, like to make it up that hill, record time. Thank you, Bill Mazeroski, but rushing up the hill. I get to my street. Kids are on bicycles. Remember, this was 1960, so there were mothers out there with aprons on, babies in strollers, and I was kind of just experiencing like I don't know how to describe this. I was feeling so many things at that time. I was like so excited that the Pirates had won the World Series. I was so relieved that I didn't have to keep this secret anymore. Obviously, it was out now. Some people knew, you know, my family knew. But I was also really kind of scared and anxious about what I was going to find when I walked in the door. So I walked in the door. I think I was the only sibling there at the time, and plus the others were very young. And so my sister's diagnosis was, well, we call it now Down syndrome, but back then the terminology was mongoloid, right? Yeah, if you remember. So I admit that my sister Maureen, when she was a baby, she was a little strange looking, but by the time she was 6 months old, she was just stunning. She was so cute. She was so adorable, so lovely. And she seemed to progress pretty normally. She was walking by the time she was 13 months old. Yeah. So I can say for a fact that this little girl, she transformed our entire family. My mom became an advocate for children with disabilities. She was instrumental in starting a preschool for children with disabilities. My sister Nancy, I'm not sure if she's watching now, but we all know you were just so cute and adorable. She became a fierce defender of our sister, even to the point of getting into fist fights with you know, some of her other kids who made fun of Maureen. Side note, my sister Nancy insists that Maureen knew the alphabet and how to spell her name before she did, because Maureen went to preschool and my sister Nancy did not. Yeah. My brothers, Ed and Bill, were very, very protective of Maureen, but honestly, the whole entire neighborhood loved her, especially when she would go door to door and invite people to spaghetti dinner. And another side note, sorry, Mom, you were a terrible cook. So a little side story about Maureen, even though this story is really about secret keeping and how that impacts us, but I do have to spend some time talking about my sister's love of beer. She was about 3, and my family had a cottage at Conneaut Lake, and still does. And my dad decided then that he was going to help paint the trim, you know, above the porch roof. So he put up a ladder. He also poured a glass of beer. He climbed up the ladder. He was up there for a while painting, came back down. The beer was gone. I'm sure, I think I do remember him saying, "Who drank my beer?" But we were all too young. So I guess well, maybe a neighbor came over and drank it, I don't know. So he got a refill, he poured more in, he walked up the stairs again, was up there for a while painting, came back down, and again, the glass was empty. And then I looked and I saw Maureen, age 3, rolling around in the grass and laughing hysterically. So, all right, so that's a funny story, but so she's definitely Irish. I do want to spend just a minute talking about, though, the relationship between my mother and Maureen was very unique, because I remember when my baby sister was an infant, and probably till she was about 6 months old, my mother went to morning mass every day. And she confided in me that she thought maybe she did something wrong in her life, that she was being given this challenge as a way to make up, which, you know, I didn't understand then and I still don't understand now. But, you know, I do remember thinking then, does my mom have a secret too that, you know, she really didn't tell us about? And she and my sister had an extremely unique relationship. Like Maureen somehow knew that my mother was devoted to her, but there was somehow a conflict there. And she used it, she did. Like, she knew how to get on my mother's nerves way better than any of us ever did. So, All right, so I wanted to spend a little time talking about her because if you would ask any of my siblings who was the most crucial and important person in your development, it would be Maureen. Like, there's no question about it. Okay, so how did my being asked to keep such a heavy secret impact my life? You know, this exercise in storytelling has caused me to really think about that. I can tell you, I'm 99.9% sure that not once in my life, if someone said to me, "This has to stay between you and me," did I ever breach that confidence. I'm also a social worker, and I knew from a very early age that I wanted to be involved in a profession that helped people. I don't know if it had to do with the secret keeping or if it had to do with my sister having Down syndrome. I'm not really sure, and you know, I don't really think it matters at this point. But everything you read about secret keeping in families says it's a bad thing. It's destructive. You know, families need to really talk about and divulge their secrets. But on some level, I think that my dad asking me to keep this made me feel responsible. You know, kind of made me feel like I'm a big person. I can really handle this. I was kind of proud that he thought enough of me to ask me, really, you know. I also feel that this secret keeping, and it wasn't for a very long period of time, but actually gave me some confidence about my own resilience and my ability to handle kind of bad news, you know, on a certain level. And taught me in retrospect, because I've gone through this experience of storytelling, that it is really important even when we're sad and had bad news and things could end up being tragic, that it's still really important to be able to recognize those moments of joy, you know, like the Bill Mazeroski home run, and that we shouldn't feel bad about that. You know, in fact, it's a way to reconnect with people, it gives us hope. So on the downside, though, I wonder sometimes if I'm like too willing to share burdens that I really shouldn't, or maybe even carry other people's bags of garbage. I do kind of wonder about that. You might wonder, did I ever talk with my parents about this? Honestly, it might surprise you, but I don't remember. I don't remember if I ever discussed it with them. Maybe I was just so relieved not have to worry about this anymore that I just kind of forgot about it. You know, I don't know. You may also wonder, why would my dad ask a 12-year-old to carry this burden? And I'm not going to lie, you know, that question briefly has crossed my mind a couple times. But I have not dwelt on it, and my dad is not here to explain himself, so it's, you know, to me it's really not that important. I should tell you that Maureen is no longer with us. She died a little over a year and a half ago from COVID. She was fully vaccinated, but was taking medication that depressed her immune system. But she waited for all of us, the rest of the siblings, to be there, and we gave her a send-off of an Irish wake with lots of beer. And I'm sure she would have enjoyed that, and I sometimes think maybe she did hang around a little while, you know, to enjoy with us before she moved on. So I will forever thank you, Bill Mazeroski, for that walk-off homer in the 9th inning. You helped me make that trudge up that steep hill in record time. You also introduced me to cardio, although I didn't know that's what it was called then, and taught me, in retrospect now, and I really thank you, Pam, for giving me the opportunity to really think about this, that you can still experience joy during times of sadness, and it's not something, as I said before, we should feel guilty about. We need these moments to rejuvenate and to reconnect. But I do want to end by saying I know my story is not unique. All of us are products of families who have experienced sadness and loss, tragedy, and even secrets. I hope, though, in the future I will do a better job of encouraging other people that are going through rough times and sadness and tragedy to kind of take advantage. You don't pass up those moments, even if they're momentary, of joy. All right. That's my story. Thanks.
Well, it's what we would call a halftime, okay? So join me in thanking our first half storytellers. And we're going to take a brief break, allow you to stretch your legs, hit the restroom, which is out the door to the right. We've got a few refreshments. And we have a tradition here when we gather as City View Church, and I know we're not here in church, but in essence, we ask folks to say hello to one person they didn't come with. And so let me invite you to consider that today during our break. And your signal that you need to come back to your seats will be Jane West. All right? So, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, break. What do I say?
In a boat out at sea, sail away, kill off the hours. You belong somewhere you feel free. Run away, go find a lover, go away somewhere bright and new. I have seen no other who compares with you. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong in a boat out at sea. You belong with your love on your arm. You belong somewhere you'll feel free. Run away, go find a lover, go away, let your heart be your guide. You deserve deepest of cover. You belong in that home by and by. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong somewhere close to me. Sail away, kill off the hours. You belong somewhere you'll feel free. You belong somewhere you'll feel free. Thank you.
One thing, you gotta get on the mic.
Do I? Must I? Yes.
Or at least be loud.
I'll be on the mic. Just in case you're wondering, the next DMZ is September 28th, right? So just a little heads up on there. Mark your calendars if you're interested in telling a story. We're all ears. And I want to know everything that ever happened to everybody, basically. So come see me. And what we're going to do is like a brief activity, if you feel like it. I handed out little half sheets. If you want to read it yourself, that's fine. If you don't, you can give it to me and I will read it for you. So, and it's just, so anybody want to come up and read their things? Come on, Kay. Anybody, come on up. You don't have to just line up over here.
My name is Kay Bey. Everybody calls me Buttons. First of all, I'd like to say I'm extremely proud of all of you all coming up, telling your stories and having the courage to share with us because it is not easy to do. So, real brief, where I came from was a place called the Land of the Voiceless. So the Land of the Voices is like underground hip hop, right? I've been in underground hip hop about 30 years. And back when I started doing it, I was this rapper and I was going to make this impact, and I'm looking around and I'm doing my thing and ended up at PCTV, Northside. And what I discovered when I got there was, hey, I do this and nobody's paying me any attention. I wonder how many other people do this and no one's paying them any attention. So from that journey, I ended up creating my own company. The first one was JPB. The second one that I am currently running is called Grind City Media, which I now own my own Roku channel, my own magazine, and my own radio station for the voiceless. So I am now the voice for the voiceless. So thank you.
Anybody would like to come to the microphone, please do.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? My name's Teaira Collins, and where I come from is becoming a teen mom, wanting to give my kids a better life than I had. Let's see. Out of five kids, one needed a kidney transplant. One was born with Down syndrome. I'm having back surgery, double back surgery, and asking for help with one of my children who was bipolar. Didn't turn out right because the system failed us. Didn't help him, didn't help me. Instead, they took my baby who had Down syndrome away from me. Fighting for my son who has bipolar and my daughter who the hospital was refusing to give her a second kidney transplant. And taking on the hospitals, fighting for the little people is what I do now, whether it's for free fares, healthy food, or health care, because it's a human right, and we are human, and it's our right.
This is a perfect time for me to remind you to turn your phone off if you turned it on during the break. And apologies to those of you who might not have finished your chip bags, okay? But Will in the back is trying to record everybody, so maybe you just hold off a little bit till the end, all right? Our next speaker is Carla Arnold, and she wanted you to know about a journey that she took to Malawi in Africa. And what she learned on that journey was that women have a place. And so join me in welcoming Carla.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carla Arnold. I was born and raised on the north side, so I'm a true north sider. My story is about plans and plans that you make. And you know that sometimes when you make a plan, sometimes it goes awry. How the story is going to start is that I'm sitting at home at my puzzle table, and I'm putting together jigsaw puzzles. That was my thing back then. And as I'm sitting there putting together the puzzle, you know, I feel a twinge. I said, let me go. And I went to the bathroom, and I went an awful long time. I went to the bathroom way longer than it should be humanly possible as far as I was concerned. And after you do your due diligence, and I noticed there was a little spotting. If you haven't guessed, let me tell you, I was just about 6 months pregnant at the time. And so I said, well, there's a little spotting. So I called the doctor, and she tells me, why don't you stop at, I got patients, why don't you stop at emergency? So I said, okay, to make sure everything is okay. So I take, and I get dressed, and I said, well, you know, well, after I leave there, I'm going to go on down to the mall. At that point in time, there was Allegheny Center Mall. I don't know what it's called now. But at the time, it was Allegheny Center Mall, and it had the most fabulous stores. So I get myself together. I didn't think nothing was too wrong. So I caught the bus down to the hospital. So I get there, and I get off the bus. I walk to the hospital. I walk in the door, and it is jam-packed in the emergency room. I mean, jam-packed. People are standing up. People are laying on the floor. At this point in time, this is January the 6th, 1977, and it's just the end of what I call a small pandemic of the swine flu. And the hospital was just packed with people. And I walk in, and I sign in. And I sign in, and I go and sit down for a little while. People are coughing. People are getting up, running to the bathroom. And I feel a twinge in my back. I said, well, let me get up. So I start to walk. I'm walking the floor of the emergency room. And then a young woman comes in who knew my family. She was a teacher. And she said, Carla, what are you doing here? I tell her. And she said, well, why didn't they go and see you? And I said, well, I ain't thinking nothing about it. They got all these other people here. I can wait. She said, oh, no. So she goes up, and she talks to the receptionist. I go up to the receptionist, and the receptionist tells me, why didn't you say anything? And I said, well, I'm doing okay. I'm not in too much pain. And I was just walking because I didn't want to sit around all these people who are coughing and doing God knows what. So I take, and we sit down. She signs me in. They take me back to see the doctor. I have my purse ready. I had called a friend, and she was meeting me at the hospital. And the friend took and called my sister because she worked with her and said, Carla's down at emergency. And if you didn't know, at one point in time in Pittsburgh, you know, it snowed all the time. And in 1977, I swear it had snowed like 10 feet, and it was still on the ground. And the only way you got around is where people had shoveled at. So it was wintertime too. And so we go back to see the doctor, and he takes and he checks heart, this, that, and the other. And then he puts my feet in stirrups. And he said, uh-oh. And I said, what does uh-oh mean? He said, I think you are in labor because you're dilated. I said, oh, no, I can't be in labor. I got plans today. I got my bag. I'm going to the mall. In the mall, they have a bakery, and they used to sell these huge candy apples with red taffy on it. And that's where I was going. I wasn't staying here, and I didn't know what you're talking about, but no, that's not right. Plus that, I'm just about 6 months pregnant. Not exactly, but almost 6 months pregnant, maybe a day or two away. And so he said, no, I don't think you're going to the mall. We're not letting you get out of here. And I said, okay, I'm going to settle down. He said, I think we might try to stop your labor. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? And so they take me up. At that point in time, sonograms had came into the world, and they did a sonogram, and they said, oh, well, don't look like this is going to work for you, because she's already turned around and she's coming down the birth canal. So there is no stopping this. I said, well, can't you turn her back? And they said, well, it don't work like that. I said, well, okay. So they take me down to a birthing room at the hospital, and I'm laying there, and I'm nervous, and because I really didn't tell anybody that I was going to the hospital or that I was in labor, because I didn't think I was in labor, because those plans are 9 months. The plans aren't 6 months. So as I'm laying there in the room, I keep hearing this scream. and there is a woman who is screaming bloody murder like somebody is killing her. And the nurses come in, and I try to be calm, and finally I just said, what is wrong? They said she'd been in labor for 24 hours. I said, she's been in where for 24 hours? They said she's been in labor. I said, oh God, please, no, not 24 hours. Well, mine didn't last that long. Wasn't 24 hours. Finally, the doctor comes in, he checks, and he sees that, he said, okay, time for you to go to the labor room, and this baby's gonna come. I said, okay. So we get in there, and I had already made arrangements for me to have a nerve block, and that's where they deaden you from your waist down. And so they said, okay, Miss Arnold, they sit me on the table, and the doctor says to bend over, hunch your back. And what they do is they shoot you in your spine, and it deadens you from the waist down. And so he goes, and the needle goes in, and the little twinge of it made me bear. And when I bared down, the head of the child popped out, and the head is screaming, and I'm going, what is going on? The head is screaming, and I'm going, oh my God, and the doctor is saying, get her arms, don't let her move. I still got the needle in her spine. I'm saying, oh Lord, have mercy. And so finally, the doctor said, okay, he gets the needle out. There's a nurse who got one leg, the nurse, and they switched me over. The head is still crying and screaming. She can't come out because the shoulders are too big, and apparently I wasn't wide enough. And so what happened, they said, well, you know, we're going to have to cut you. It's called an episiotomy. And so they cut me. I said, well, you know what? I'm not exactly dead and down there yet. They said, well, that's too bad. And so they give me a cut. They pull her out. And there's this cone head red baby. And I'm going, wow, is that what they look like? And I noticed that the nurse took her over, and he's rubbing her head. And you start to realize that in that time, they took and they rubbed the head to start to form the skull. And I'm going, oh my goodness, this isn't what I planned. I'm supposed to be at the mall right now. That candy apple. I'm not going to get the candy apple today. So I took, and they take me in, you go into recovery, you take your baby. She was in a hospital for 30 days. She's premature. She weighed 4 pounds. She lost a pound, and so she was at 3 pounds for a long time. And that's a story. People say, no, that really didn't happen. Yeah, it did. Things don't always go as you planned them to go. Sometimes your plans go awry, but it doesn't mean that it's bad what happens. What it means is that it's just different than what you planned it to be. Sometimes God has another purpose for you to learn, another lesson for you to learn. And my lesson for you to learn is that, for me anyway, that I wasn't having any more kids. No, because I figured, it happened once, it'll happen again. Lightning does strike twice. So, in all of that, my family came together, everybody finally got there. They take me up to the room, I'm in recovery. My child is in the incubator. They apparently had to tie her down because she kept moving around in the incubator. We don't know why, but she did. And my lesson that I learned is that sometimes you have to change your plans. Sometimes things are going to happen differently than what you want them to happen. And right now, that child born 1677 is sitting back there in the audience. She's 46 years old, and she has her own mind and her own set. And like I said, sometimes what I want you to take out of here is that sometimes your plans go awry.
Oh wait, you took all my papers. She took my introduction paper. You took my papers. I need my script. We've got one more story for you, friends. And our storyteller, Annafi Wahid, will be coming and wants us to know that the longest journey they've ever taken is learning to separate what I want my life to look like versus what I think my life should look like. Well, you just preached the sermon right there. So let's welcome Annafi. Did I say that right? She's going to correct me. My apologies.
Close enough. It's enough. Hi. Can you hear me? I started writing as if I was writing a story, but I didn't actually finish the story. So the starting part is really good, and then I will ramble for a little bit. I apologize. I remember being at the airport with my aunts, uncles, and cousins crying and hugging me. I don't think my 8-year-old self quite comprehended what was happening. How far away can this new place be? Why can't I bring my Legos? Are we sure there's a Lego store there? It was the fall of 1998, and we were moving across an ocean from Dhaka, Bangladesh, to New York City. Amrika, as I would hear about it on TV. On the car ride from JFK Airport to Astoria, an immigrant neighborhood in Queens, I stared in awe at the buildings. Everything is so tall and shiny, and oh my God, look, there are girls walking around in pants, just like they do in the movies. And oh my God, the yellow cabs, they're real. It didn't dawn on my 8-year-old self that this was our permanent home until that winter. I did not like the cold one bit and missed my home in Bangladesh dearly. I would sit by the window and watch the sky begin its descent into darkness in the late afternoons, wishing I was Superman so I could fly home. One day, my mom and I are in the playground, and there's a lot of snow. And my mom notices what the other kids are doing. Now, she doesn't know what's going on, but she's trying to get me to play with them and play with the others. So she says in Bangla, she says, well, the white kids are on the ground, thrashing about. Get on the ground. And I said, I am not getting on the ground. She says, well, the white kids are thrashing about on the ground. We did not realize they were trying to make snow angels. And that was a good metaphor for the first few years in the country, me thrashing about, not realizing the snow angels, laughing at jokes I didn't quite get, pretending that I knew the words to the Britney Spears songs and the NSYNC songs. By the 5th grade, I was thriving academically, but still felt like I was thrashing, just, aimlessly here and there, left and right, trying to move in the direction of the other kids, the white kids, the brown kids, the black kids, whoever I happened to be nearby. In 6th grade, I went to a new school, a magnet school. There was more thrashing. In 7th grade, another new school, this time the best public school in the country. So it says on the Wikipedia page. It was my 5th winter. It was the 7th grade, and my new friend said, hey, let's go ice skating at Bryant Park. I was terrified. I did not know how to ice skate. But I said, well, yeah, let's go do it. And so we get there, and I put on the skates, and I get on the ring, and I'm holding onto the rail. And my now best friend, Catherine, says, hey, do you not know how to ice skate? And I said, and she reaches out, and she takes both her hands and puts my hands in mine. She says, hold my hands. And she guides me along, so I'm no longer holding on to the railing. For the first time, I was no longer thrashing, but gliding. Gliding in the middle of Manhattan with the view of the main branch of the New York Library. Gliding, near the tall buildings that I was so in awe of just a few years ago. The next few winters, I learned to love hot chocolate. I went to Bryn Mawr, and I remember snow days, stealing the trays from the dining hall and going, sledding with the trays on the really cold days. I remember my first kiss at the winter formal. I remember long walks through Central Park in the snow as we gaze about on our way to the museum or just to cut a day of school. I'm still not a fan of winter, but there is something so comforting about the crisp winter air as the first flakes of the snow fall waywardly to the ground. I think it's the smell of home. Thank you.
Thank you, Annafi. Well, we've come to the end of our show. I would like to take a few moments to acknowledge some folks. Could we first acknowledge all of our storytellers and the courage it takes to get up here? Additionally, you may or may not know that every storyteller has to agree to be coached. And I know that Kay Bey and Pam are coaches. Is there another one? Is it just Kay? All right, we got one coach this time. And of course, Jane West. We want to thank Jane for being here. And all of this is fundamentally the brain trust of two co-conspirators. They include me in that, but I don't. I'm like a step down from them. Pam and Will sitting in the back. Let's thank them for their creative energy. The next Demilitarized Zone storytelling event will be September 28th. There is a paper. If you have this paper, there's a survey where you can say, hey, this is what I thought about this event, and I might have a story to tell. Let me just tell you that you do have a story to tell. You just don't know it yet, all right? You are invited to participate. You're invited to invite your friends to participate. We are building a community where we can experience being humans together. And so to the folks online, thanks for joining us. To all of you in this room, thanks for being here. And as you head on out this evening, maybe say hello to one more person you didn't come with. And so I wish you well. Thanks so much for your attention, and good night.